welcome back to episode 39 of Scar Bearers. I'm Chris D.T. Gordon. It is fantastic to have you here with me today. Nate and Britton Barron, man, you guys keep working your magic. If you want them to work on your video or post-production or sound or anything like that, I guess that's all video, you can contact them at Nate Barron. Well, folks, I believe at this time the book has been out for a couple of weeks, but if you still want your copy of Blue Talks Presents Business, Life, and the Universe, Volume 3, that features a chapter from yours truly, you can find it at BLU talksbook.com. I'm so excited about this project. I share my time with others who have other inspiring stories to share, and lots of sharing going on, and lots of inspiration too. So check it out. Today's sponsor, the term retro. Retro, a quick and easy way to explain to your kids, well, you could keep your stuff, but their favorite toys go in the quarter bin at the garage sale. All right, today I'm with my new friend, Sarah McMahon. How are you today, Sarah?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Doing well, thank you. I pronounced your last name correctly. McMahon, is it?
Yes, McMahon,
all right,
yes.
So sometimes, there's weird pronunciations with that name, so I'll make sure I get it right. And one thing I like about our connection, Sarah, is that we are both runners, but you take it a little extreme. You are an ultra runner. And so what got you started on this path to insanity?
Insanity is a good way to put it. I started running when I was 12. I started because I joined my school's cross country team, and I didn't know what it was. My friend asked me to join, and I said, sure. And so I got to practice, and we just ran. And I was like, what kind of sport is this? I was kind of like, And then we started racing, and it was a lot of fun and stuff. And I ran through, middle school, high school, ran through college. And then after college, I was kind of like, what's next? I took a bunch of time off for my eating disorder. And here in California, there's just trails everywhere. There's mountains, and I found this trail running community, and it was just so much more fun. And then, you hang out with trail runners long enough, and you're going to start doing some long races, and it just kind of escalates from there. I think my first ultra was a 50 miler. I just jumped straight from like marathon to 50 miler. And it was like the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most exciting. And I just was walking on, I was just elated for days. I felt so good afterwards. And so that just made me want to keep going and doing more and stuff. COVID kind of put a, damper on all the races this year, but I was able to do one in February before everything started, and then traveled a little bit outside of California this summer for some races. So
cool. Now, I love at the beginning of that, you explained it kind of like a Forrest Gump way of saying, of getting into it. I just started running, and that's what we, and yes, you can simplify it and say that, but there's so much more to running, as I'm sure you found out when you started doing races. It's such a mental game. And so you said that your first race was a 50 miler. For someone who has only run a marathon consecutively, I mean, I've done what's called an ultra Ragnar.
Sure.
And I've run 33 miles within a span of 24 hours. But my ultra runner friends were quick to tell me that's not an ultra. And so, you have to connect them together, Chris. So what gets into your head when you start running past that marathon mark?
Well, my first ultra was, it was at elevation. It was in Big Bear, California. So it's about 7,000 feet, goes up to 10,000 feet. And I didn't acclimate to elevation, so that was rough. And then I also started too fast, so that was rough. And then I also didn't eat or drink enough to start with, so I kind of bonked. So at halfway through, I was like, I don't know if I can do another one of these, like the marathon. I don't know if I can put 2 marathons together. But the thing about ultras that's cool is you go through a bunch of highs and lows. Like you got to ride the highs, but then, have to know that the lows are going to end at some point. So just keep, try to like eat, try to drink, try to get through the low, and then you're going to feel better. So I didn't know that before my first one. So I was like, this sucks, it hurt really bad. But yeah, I think the more that you do it, the more you learn to kind of just embrace the parts where you suffer.
Yeah, a lot of, with most things, the first one is usually the worst one. And so, taking those lessons is so important. What kind of food do you usually eat when you're running? Because I've been known to stack a little Ziploc bag of Sour Patch Kids when I'm on a really long run. So what is it for you that keeps you going?
Sour Patch Kids are actually really great. I did a run through Joshua Tree this summer. It's called the Joshua Tree Traverse, and it's 37 miles. And halfway, I stopped and I ate a bunch of Sour Patch Kids and had a bunch of water, and I felt great. So that's a good, and like often real food. Aid stations will have oranges or potato chips or bananas or whatever. I like to eat those. But when I'm just training, I use like the Cliff Blocks. They're just like big gummy bears, basically, but they have, a little more electrolytes and stuff like that, or caffeine. And then I use a liquid supplement called Tailwind. So you just add that to water. It's pretty tasteless. It just has carbs in it. But I like that because it doesn't mess with my stomach. So having stomach issues during an ultra is the worst thing. So
I bet.
Yeah, I stick to what I know pretty much.
Gotcha. You never want to switch your game plan at the last minute. No, that's never a good idea. So what's been your favorite ultra so far?
I would have to say Sean O'Brien. I did Sean O'Brien in February. It's 100K. It's up in Malibu, and I ran it in 12 hours and 15 minutes. So it was pretty fast, and I got third place. And that's one of the ultras where the top 2 men and the top 2 women got like a golden ticket to Western States. And so I was like gunning for the golden ticket, and I just missed it by one person. But I just felt good that day. I don't know what happened. I trained really well, but then all the pieces came together on the day. And so I just had a good race. When I finished at 62 miles, I felt like I could keep going. So yeah, so I just had a really good day that day. So.
Well, congratulations. I know you're going for that golden ticket, but still third overall for women. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was fun.
Cool. So going back a bit, you had mentioned while you're explaining, how you got into ultra running that you had an eating disorder. And, we on Scarborough, we usually talk about the external scars and injuries, but the internal can be just as bad. And so please, fill us in on that.
Yeah, I think I started having disordered eating habits when I was young, like 10 maybe, because I think that's when I kind of learned that, being fat is bad, and you kind of become aware of how the media portrays bodies, and the diet industry gets kind of crazy. And I would like read things in magazines and take it really literally. Like I stopped eating, when this was in high school, I stopped eating any kind of carb because I thought carbs were bad. And the only carbs I would allow myself to eat were like fruit. And anyway, it just wrecked my digestive system. And so I did like weird things like that throughout high school. When I was a senior in high school, my mom had cancer, and she's okay now, she's good. But she was away at the hospital. My dad was staying with her, and I was just stressed out. I was 18, right? I was about to graduate and go to Bradley. I was about to go to college, and I just didn't know how to deal with, I guess, like the hardship that I was experiencing. And so I just started binging, and then I started throwing up because I felt so guilty for binging. And so that's when I taught myself how to like make myself throw up. It's not pretty, but eating disorders aren't pretty. And then I went away to college, and I was a Division I athlete, and running is one of those sports where, people can focus on body size and weight, and it matters to some degree, but then, we can take it too far, especially, I think a high level runner is sometimes like a type A personality, and a lot of girls on my team kind of had these disordered eating habits, and the coaches at the time were very focused on body weight. They would like measure our body fat in front of everybody. We would get weighed in front of everybody, like stuff like that. And we had a dietitian come talk to us. I had to take pictures of like my food and send it to my trainers and stuff like that every time I had a meal, and they would critique what I was eating. So stuff like that just made me hyper aware of food and everything. And so I started restricting even heavier. And I was running like between 60 and 80 miles a week at the time, and probably eating like, I don't know, like 1,500 calories a day, like not enough. And so
Whoa.
I just dropped a bunch of weight. And then it got really bad when I was a senior. I had hip surgery. I tore the labrum in my right hip, and I just stopped eating because I was unable to work out. So I just was so scared of gaining weight that I dipped below 100 pounds. And like now I'm like almost 150. I'm like very healthy weight for my size.
Yeah.
But so just like the contrast was pretty stark. And then that's when I was like told, you need help. So I went to the campus counseling center, and they kind of told me I was beyond their scope, and they referred me to the local hospital, where I went to an outpatient program. And eating disorders are rough, like any mental disorder. It's not so much that I was like focused on food and everything, but I was also suffering like socially isolated. You have all this sort of like shame about what you're doing. Like I was making myself throw up quite often. So I had a bunch of shame about that. Nobody knew what I was doing. It's something you can kind of keep secret until I got really tiny. It was all done in secret and no one could really see what the problem was. And that's the thing with a lot of eating disorders. Most people don't get to the point of being emaciated. So no one can tell that they're struggling, and it's very socially isolating. I was unable to concentrate in class and stuff like that. So when I finally went to treatment, it was like, it was outstanding, because I was checking in, and a doctor was taking out my vitals, and he told me, like, to my face, he goes, you can continue what you're doing and you'll eventually die, or you can, choose to get better. And I was like, oh my God, I don't want to die.
Wow.
It was like, that was probably the moment where I was like, oh, I really have a problem. So from there, it was outpatient program. I went there for all my meals. They made me eat like dense things like protein shakes and stuff like that to just regain the weight pretty quick. And then was in therapy for probably like 4 or 5 years, like very regularly. Also worked with a dietitian, and I still see a therapist and a dietitian, but kind of for different reasons now. I don't have the same struggle with an eating disorder, but now I'm like an athlete that does all these endurance sports, so I want to optimize my nutrition and stuff like that. So that's why I still see a dietitian.
Okay. No, that's really smart, because our bodies are machines. They're biological machines, and making sure your body works as optimally as possible is very important when you're running all those miles.
Yeah.
Getting back to, maybe it was when that doctor basically called you out on the mat, what was your mindset when you made that switch, when you just started on that road to recovery? What was what were you thinking?
I was like, honestly, I was just really scared. I didn't want to die, but I was also scared to give up the thing that I had lived with for so long. I was very attached to my eating disorder, and it was a big part of how I had learned to live. And so I had to unlearn like all the food rules that I had put in place for myself. I had to unlearn all the behaviors that I was doing. I had to, try to dissociate my worth from my body, like all those really difficult things that take time to unwind. When people ask me like how long it took to get over my eating disorder, it's not just like it took like the whatever 6 or 8 weeks I was at the outpatient program, or even a year of therapy. It took like many years to unlearn the behaviors that I was engaging in. And so yeah, but that was the pivotal moment when he said that. But I was afraid either way. I was afraid to keep going, but I was also afraid to stop. And addressing that fear. I was also afraid to just say I had an eating disorder. Like I thought that was so shameful and everything. So I was just grappling with a lot of fear, and I felt really stuck. And the only way that I kind of became unstuck was just lots and lots and lots of therapy.
Yeah. And I know many people, they disregard therapy as something that is maybe supplemental, or something that they don't need. But I think that therapy, and it can come in many different forms, but it's such an underrated tool to help people get over as you are, as you were and are, an eating disorder, and or something that maybe not as high stakes but could still affect you in a detrimental sense. Do you consider yourself, I guess, recovered, or are you always someone who is always struggling with that disorder?
That's a really good question. And I have a blog called the Prosiest, and I blog about eating disorders a lot. And that's a question I get quite often. And I wrote a blog about it, the difference between being in recovery and recovered. And it's kind of, I think, up to the person. I would consider myself recovered now. I don't think about, like, when I'm going to have a meal, I don't like think about the calorie counts, and I don't look in the mirror and critique my body. And I'm not stuck in this whole mindset of being like really sick. And so, but that took time. I wouldn't consider myself, I didn't consider myself recovered for probably like the 4 years I was in like very intense therapy. And yeah, therapy is such a great tool. I addressed a lot more than just my eating disorder, because obviously that came from somewhere, right? So we had to address like, like childhood things and family dynamics and trauma that I experienced in relationships. And it was like a multifaceted approach. And what I always tell people about therapy is it's not going to hurt. Like, it's not going to make your life worse unless like you want it to, but like if you're willing to engage, it's only going to help. And mine was like a chronic thing, like a long time of an eating disorder. So I was in therapy for a long time, but some people just need it for, maybe they have a traumatic event or something, like someone dies and they just need help getting through that. And that's okay too. And there's this whole like stigma and shame around therapy that I think is kind of going away.
Yeah, I think the more that people, both famous people and, people from all walks of life say, you know what, I've gone to a therapist and I am seeing a therapist, you're right, that stigma will hopefully disappear, because, your mind is everything. You have to have your mind right so everything else can be in order. And so it makes me really happy to hear that, therapy has helped you in such a grand scale. So you said you still go to a therapist regularly?
Yeah, you know what? I was seeing one that was specialized in eating disorders, and I kind of was like, I don't need your help anymore. And now I see one every other week. So it's not that often, but we just talk about life, especially during this weird year of COVID. I feel like everything just changed, like the rug was pulled out from under me. And instead of, in the past, if that happened, if there was a sudden life change, I would have maybe gone back to my eating disorder to cope with it. And instead of doing that, I was able to kind of like lean on my therapist and learn some other ways to cope with like a big life change. Not my life didn't change that much, but it kind of, everyone's life changed this year. So yeah, so she kind of helped me through that, but I don't really even feel like I need her anymore. It's just kind of nice to have like a third party objective person to like bounce your problems off of.
Yeah, and it's just like in life, people come into our lives in different stages, and they, I don't want to make it sound utilitarian, but they serve a purpose. And so that's definitely the same way with therapists. If like you said, we all are going through this pandemic. It is global. So for someone who may have had a hard time pivoting, what is something that maybe you and your therapist talked about that could help them with with making a move that would get them out of a rut?
Yeah. One thing we talked about was just continuing to do the things that I like to do. And luckily the things that I like to do are like running in the mountains, and the mountains aren't closed. Like, I can still do that, even though there's like no races to train for. I'm still able to be outside and just take, small blessings as they come. I wasn't able to travel as much, but then I was able to save more money. So I just was trying to look on the brighter side of things. I'm not going to my office every day, but I don't have to commute. I'm saving money on gas. So there's a lot of good things that came out of the pandemic. And also, I used to just be on the go all the time. Like, that's one thing. I keep myself very busy. And so like last summer, I was just traveling all over the place, going to different races and stuff like that. And this summer I was here, and Southern California is not a bad place to be quarantined. There's lots of beautiful things here.
There are worse places, I think.
Yes. Yeah. And so I kind of learned to appreciate where I live a little bit more as well. So just trying to like look on the bright side, and just also being kind. I think a lot of people have this thing where they're like, oh, I'm home all day, I should be productive, I should be doing more and more and more, but also just being, kind to yourself. You're not just home, you're like surviving a pandemic, you know what I mean? So just having a little kindness for yourself always helps.
I totally agree. And I think another thing you said really resonates with me is give yourself credit. Yeah. We are all going through this, and the vast majority of us are going through a pandemic for the first time. So we don't know what to expect. And, give those little victories every day count. They add up to those bigger victories. And so if, I know some people, it's a big thing for them to get up and shower, especially if they're having a hard time. You know what? That's still something, and so looking for those small victories is huge. Like you said, being able to find the positives and in everyday life is just going to help you add those up and hopefully help you through a struggle like we're facing now. And so have you started looking for, I guess, are there races that are starting to advertise now, or are they still kind of keeping it down low?
It kind of depends on where you are. I think California is being pretty strict. I mean, understandably so, because the cases here are really high. I did a race in August in Utah called Tushers, and it's notoriously difficult. It started at like 10,000 feet, and I did the 100K. So there was 17,000 feet of climbing at elevation. I got really sick from the elevation. It was terrible, but also really great. And I want to go back and do it again because it's just like that. Like runners are like that. We're like, oh, that was hard. I'm going to try it again.
Yep.
But there's races, I think, in also like Arizona. There's places, I think, but that are trying to do it, safely. But I think maybe, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, California they're kind of putting the kibosh on everything. Maybe until a vaccine comes, or the whole future of racing is a little bit in the dark still. Nobody knows what's going to happen, right? Generally, but even with races as well. So.
Yeah, I did sign up for a 10-mile race called the Goldie's 10 Mile, which starts at the University of Minnesota. I say the University of Minnesota because I'm from Michigan, and that's the real U of M. So,
okay.
yeah. So I know you don't have any skin in the game, but a little shots fired. Anyway, they had first postponed it till August of earlier this year, and then totally nixed it. But the registration goes until this coming April. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. You're right. It's everything is such an up in the air game now.
Yeah, I have probably like 6 race credits from this year that are going to transfer to next year. So hopefully some of them happen. I was planning to run my first 100-miler last summer, and it was actually fully loaded. It was ready to go. It was going to be up in Big Bear again, even COVID safe and everything. But then a wildfire happened, and California is always on fire, but this wildfire was actually started by a gender reveal party. They like blew up a.
Oh, I heard about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Like,
it's arson. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So that was a bummer.
Yeah. So hopefully that one does return next year. And so have you done any virtual races?
No, I don't think so. I think I signed up for a few to support some like local race directors. Like one is called Rombless. It's here in Southern California. But no, not really. I'm not like that interested in it because I'm very competitive. I mean, I was like a D1 athlete. Like the fun of racing to me is like being next to somebody and trying to catch someone and all that kind of stuff. So I can go run like 50 miles on my own if I wanted to, you know what I mean? But I think the fun of it is the racing aspect for me.
Yeah, I agree. I've done a few 5Ks, and they were all for like either junior achievement or actually I signed up for one for Necrotizing Fasciitis Foundation, but I've yet to run it because I'm getting back. I've had a few hamstring problems, so I want to. When I run this, I want to have a good time, and so I'm like, I'll run it when I'm ready to run it. But I have the pack, the T-shirt in the middle, right in the corner there, waiting for me. But you're right. It's I'm the same way. I love the camaraderie and the competition, and so it's I really have to have a good reason to sign up for a virtual race.
Yeah, so. Usually I do it to support. Like I'm a member of this organization called Bigger Than the Trail, and actually started in Wisconsin, but it's they combine trail running with like mental health awareness, and they raise money and then they offer services to people who can't maybe afford it and whatnot. And so I did a virtual race on their behalf, signed up, did the whole thing. But it's only because I love that organization, you know what I mean? So yeah.
Well, that's really cool. Yeah, it has to be something important to sign up for a virtual race like that.
Totally.
So Sarah, I know you've given us a lot to think about in terms of, mental health, but if someone were to listen to this and maybe they were struggling with their own eating disorder or some other kind of issue, what would be one thing you would tell them to get them on the road to recovery?
Yeah, I would definitely say, definitely don't try to tackle it alone. I don't know if it's possible to overcome something like that alone. I mean, whether it's the support of your family or a therapist. My family didn't even know I was in therapy for a long time until because I was ashamed of it. So, but I had a team of like healthcare providers to lean on, and I definitely don't think I could have overcome it on my own. So don't be ashamed to ask for help. That sounds so cliche, but it's so true. And no one is in life on their own. Like we all rely on each other all the time, and especially something like as insidious as an eating disorder, other kind of mental disorder, you definitely need help. And so find it wherever you can. There's resources too if you don't have insurance or stuff like that. There's places to find help.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. You're so right. No one is an island. And I think the concept of a self-made person is
Not true.
it's a fallacy. Something it's not right. So what else you have going on in the near future here?
You know what? I don't really know. Like I don't have any races on the books. I did just publish a book of poetry. I write. So I write. I have a blog called Prosiest. I have a book of poetry out. It's called I Like It Because It's Pink. Yeah, and of course, like all the places I used to perform my poetry are closed now as well. So yeah, writing is kind of my outlet. And then hopefully in 2021 I can use some of these race credits I have stacked up.
Yeah, I hope you can as well. So you mentioned your blog. Where all can people reach you?
They can reach me through my blog. People do that all the time. It's called The Prosiest, just www.theprosiest.com. I'm also on Instagram. My Instagram handle is kind of an inside joke. It's McMountain. My running group gave me that nickname this summer and it just kind of stuck. So I was like, I'm going to see if it's available on Instagram. And so you can find me there. And those are probably the best ways to reach me. Facebook is kind of touch and go. I'm not on there all the time. So.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And my last question, my audience loves to learn this answer. What is your favorite dinosaur?
Oh, I don't know. You asked me this ahead of time, and then I forgot what I said.
You said T-Rex.
That makes sense because the tiny arms is really funny to me. Yeah. Like, how are these just like this big, amazing, strong thing, and then they have tiny arms? That doesn't make sense. How are they supposed to like kill a predator or something?
Equalizer,
Yeah. I guess their jaws, maybe they could bite things.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. I used to watch those dinosaur movies growing up. What were those called?
Jurassic Park?
No,
Or Land Before Time.
Land Before Time. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Those are fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I always think of a T-Rex as being like an evolutionary seesaw. You have to keep it balanced.
Yeah, it can't have like, it couldn't be like also have like, ripped arms, and no one could ever defeat it. I suppose.
Yeah, it'd still be around. It would have caught the meteor and thrown it back.
That's a good point.
Well, Sarah, it's been a fantastic pleasure to talk with you. Thank you very much for sharing your story. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Definitely. And then if you want to reach out to Sarah, she's given her information there, and I'll put the links in the information below. If you want to reach out to me, you can find me at Linktree at linktr.ee/Chris DT Gordon. You can find my YouTube channel, my podcast, my Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, also a link to bluetalksbook.com. You can find volume 3 of the Blue Talks book presents Business, Life, and the Universe. Also, if you want to find out what I have to offer as a speaker, you can find my speaking sites there as well. Also, please remember to like, subscribe, share all of my information in podcasts and episodes, because I want the message to get out that people are here to help you with their stories. So I would greatly appreciate if you did that. All right, folks, thanks a lot for your time. Please have a great day. Remember to pass on perfection and go for greatness.